The other day, I came across this African girl's Instagram page. It had quite a big following. It had loads of different messages on it, had loads of captions, and I came across a caption which really stood out to me. It was a caption about the good girl complex, and I felt it's something that really resonates, even though it was directed to girls. I think it applies to boys as well. Now, with this caption, it talked about how that complex, the good complex, has nothing to do with expectations of reaching one's potential or being one's true self or taking risks or furthering oneself. It was more about appeasing the parents. It's more about seeking approval and essentially keeping their version of who you're supposed to be, keeping that in their image and not forging their own image of who they really are. And it really hit home, and I think it can apply to boys as well. And I think it's a perfect segue to my last video where I talked about how with male scapegoats, it doesn't just begin when they're born or when they're really small. It can happen at different stages of life. And I think this is a perfect example. I think just reading that post of the good girl complex, it really resonated. And I forgot what their Instagram page is, and I'm not sure if they'd want it to be revealed or not. So that's why I would, if I would know it, I would have just kept it private anyway. But in the context of this video, I think it really is fitting because I believe there is a good boy complex to scapegoating. Essentially, it's very black and white. It's you're either all good or all bad. Within a narcissistic home, there's different roles. There's a lot of triangulation. There's a lot of division and different expectations and different messages are being passed on. So there could be multiple sons, say for example, 2 or 3. One son may be seen as a rebel where they've always got to tame them and look after them, but that's their role. And the other role could be a son who is more of the parent than the son. They take care of the parent. And then this role of the good boy is someone who is essentially put on a pedestal, but on a very unhealthy pedestal where they have to be perfect. They have to do the right thing, whatever standard is set for them. They can't deviate from that, and it results in a fear of making mistakes, a fear of failure, a fear of essentially getting outside of their comfort zone. But this doesn't last forever because as humans, we always change, we always want to evolve, and as sons, as boys get older, they discover themselves, they meet different people, and then, as I mentioned in the last video, that can be quite threatening. And in a way, it's reverse scapegoating because at first they're not really scapegoated; they're seen as pure and perfect, which is just really unrealistic because no one can really match that. And not all the time, not 24/7. It's just not feasible. So they're not scapegoat at first. Earlier on, they're the complete opposite of the scapegoat. It's like they put them in like a sort of pseudo deity prophet like complex. So it's akin to a religious figure. But if something happens and they deviate that, it's like the narcissistic parent has sort of lost their relationship in a higher power, in a god. So in reaction of that, frustration grows, resentment grows, and all those qualities that they thought that their that son would have had, being perfect, being being caring, being accommodating, being easygoing and easy to raise, that just completely goes out of the window. So that's why I think initially with this scapegoating, it's a good boy complex because it's not really healthy. And with what I mentioned earlier on, they're not getting to know their son at all, really. They're getting to know the image of who they think he should be. And a lot of this happens earlier on because with narcissistic parents, they study their sons, they look to see how moldable they'll be, look at their personality traits, and the ones that stick out, they try and mold them that way. And then it turns into that so called good boy complex. But then over time, that gets reversed. And instead of being the so called good boy, they're now the scapegoat. So that's it for this evening. I've posted another blog. I will post the links later on, and I'll be back with another video on Friday.